with Quilting in the Valley, and we are going to do ruler work again. Today we are doing the Westalee Ruler Work Quilt As You Go quilt block number 3, month number 3. So month number 3, which is this big center block, you should have a 26-inch square quilt sandwich on which, I'm not going to make you watch me mark this, but on which you would have a 24-inch square marked with a 12-inch square centered, and then your 8 points in the middle of your center. So let's get started on it. So we are going to use Spinifex number 36. We've already used this ruler. So I have my pin right in my center, my thumbtack. I'm dropping that on there, right straight up there. I'll put it underneath here. As we always do, I'm going to bring my thread up at point A. See if I can get a hold of that. Here we go. So I brought my thread up at point A. And now I'm coming back around to point B. Stop. I'm going to rotate till the line at the top is on my next drawn line. I'm back at A. I go around. Stop at B. I'm rotating around till I'm over here. We've done this several times so far, so you should all be pretty familiar with this one. You should be getting better at this one. As always, I'm keeping my hands flat, pushing my whole quilt sandwich with both hands. I'm not twisting my fabric around. I'm moving the way I push against the ruler. I'm not moving the fabric to meet the ruler. All right, I get to the end there, and just like we always do, I'm gonna bring up that bobbin thread. There we go. Okay, so I have my Spinifex number 36 is done right here, and I can take my cinch side threading needle, take all of those threads, and I'm going to bury those and get those out of the way so that doesn't get tangled up in my next stage. So I'm going to come out right like this. Oops, didn't quite get that caught. Had too many at one time. Okay, so my thread is buried, and I've got my center star or flower, whatever you want to call this, ready to go. Now the next part I'm going to do is going to take your 12-inch arc ruler and your seam gauge. You're going to need your seam gauge and your 12-inch arc ruler. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my thread with the foot, front edge of my foot just touching the top stitching. And if you remember, that means that I am putting my foot, or my stitch line is now going to be a 1/4 inch away from my stitch line, because my needle is a 1/4 inch away from the outside of the foot. So I am simply going to stitch down until the front edge of the foot hits this star, and I'm going to move the ruler over, put it on the stitch line, and I'm going to go up to my drawn line. I'm going to stop, put the ruler down on my stitch line, come down till the front of my foot touches, that stitch line, rotate the ruler, put it on the stitch line, come out to the drawn line, and I do this all the way around. I'm not twisting my sandwich around to make it easier. I'm learning to work in multiple different directions. Going all the way around, and you can see now that what I'm doing is making a star on the outside of my star. And I'm ending up right back where I started. Okay, now what am I going to do? Now I'm going to make another round, only this time I'm going to go a ½ inch away. To go a ½ inch away, I'm going to travel up my line until the first line on my ruler is on my previous stitch line. So now I have my first line on the ruler is on my stitch line, the outside stitch line. That means I've got a ½ inch here and then another ½ inch from here to the needle. So now I'm at a ½ inch away. I'm going to move those beginning threads. Okay. So now I have to come back and I need to make sure that I'm stopping a ½ inch away. So that's where my seam gauge comes into play. Not quite. A little bit too far. Okay, now I'm going out. And I'm coming back in. If I put this ½ inch seam gauge down, by the time that foot hits there, that should be right where I need to be. Coming out. All the way around. Ooh, I left a really long starting thread there, didn't I? Get rid of that. And now I go right back up to where I started. And now I'm going to do an inch. So I'm going to travel up again. And I'm going to make sure that I have the third line. I'm only on the I beg your pardon, I'm not doing an inch, I'm doing 3/4 of an inch. The second line is on there. The second line is on there, and I'm going to use my 1/2 inch here. When I hit the 1/2 inch, I know that I'm a 1/4 inch away. My second line is on there. Up. Here is something we're going to do a little different. When I get to the top of this point, I am now going to come in all the way to the point of my star and all the way back out. And now I'm going to come this way. Second line on the seam allowance, all the way out. I'm going to use that 1/4 inch marker, and I'm going to come all the way back down to the point of my original star and back out. And now I'm coming this way. Till I hit that 1/2 inch, twist out. Now I'm coming back in, stitching in the point. To the original star. And then back to second line. Sure my 1/2 inch is there. Coming around the corner. Stitching back that line. Ooh, I went in a little bit too far on that one. I'm doing this point. You guys have not invested in the crosshair square yet, that's something you might want to be thinking about. That makes this much easier. Especially if you've decided you like ruler work. You will get your use out of it. Almost around. Oops. Good thing this is a practice block, because I just had a little boo-boo in the end. Okay, that is what we should have here. Now we're going to bring our thread up again. And I will take my cinch side threading needle and I will bury my beginning and my ending thread. Okay, the very next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your 12-inch arc and you are going to stitch this all the way around, and then you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch in. So you're going to stitch on the line, then you're going to put your ruler on the line and stitch a 1/4 inch in. So you're going to make 2 outlines on this block. I will meet you again in just a couple minutes. Once you've got that done, I'm going to show you how to do the outside Spinifex number 36s. Okay, so now we are going to use our Spinifex number 36 and we're going to do our corners. And we're going to use this ruler a little differently than we have used it in the past. One of the things that I don't want to do is I don't want to start at A because it'll run in through my block. So I have my pin right in the outside corner. I have the straight line at the tip of the Spinifex number 36 lined up on the outside line of my block boundary. And now I'm going to bring up my thread at the point instead of at point A. I'm going to go at the point. Oh, I can't get that out of there. I use my tweezers here. It's always handy to have tweezers. Okay, so I'm going to start at the point and I am going to come back to B like I always do when I do this. Actually, instead, I'm going to come all the way to here and then back to B. Okay, so I closed the circle. I came into the line and back to B. Now, normally we would rotate to an 8 point. We're actually going to do 16 points on this one. So there is a line that we have not used to date. It's right here. I'm going to rotate that line at the top of my ruler. So that line is at the top of the point of the previous petal. And I'm going to come in here like I would normally go, and oh no, I would go into my block again. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to travel very carefully right up that stitch line till I hit the top. And then I'll go out, finish. I'm going to come back and then to B. So I'm finishing my circle. I'm going to make instead of having these gaps down in here, I'm going to have a solid circle. Okay, I'm going to rotate again till that first line is at the tip. This time I can do an entire petal. Come in, go back out to B, rotate, rotate. So we're making lots of petals on this one. Rotate. You're not going to quite have 16 petals on this because part of it's blocked off, but you're going to have a lot. And then that base that is typically open is going to show a circle. Okay, now, not on this one, but on the next one, I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to run over my block again. Oops. Stop at E. Okay. Now remember on the other side, how if I'd gone through, I would have gone into my block? Same situation here. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to come down, and before I finish, I hit the outside line. I'm going to travel down that stitch line. And then I'm going to put my block there. And this is going to finish right at the point. As usual, bring my thread up. And that is what you should have in the corner. So you should see a difference in how this center is a solid circle, and here it's open because we backtracked a little in this center, and you should see you have a whole bunch more points because, again, we used this line on your petal point instead of rotating onto drawn lines. You're going to do that in all four corners. So finish that one up in all four corners, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to show you how to do the ones in the center. All right, now we're going to do the center petals. We're going to do these a smidge differently. So just like we did on this one, I'm going to come in here. Let's see here, I want to go this way. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to bring up my thread on the stitch line at the point of the petal, because this is another one of those deals where I don't want to run over the block. Okay. So I'm going all the way back into the stitch line back to B. This time I am going to rotate, but I'm not going to rotate just one. I'm going to rotate two. If I can see it. I can't see the darn thing. There it is. Okay, I'm rotating right to here, so my tape is over it, so you're going to have a hard time seeing it. But there is a line right there that shows the outline of the petal on that line. Hopefully your tape isn't over the same place on your template, so you can hopefully see yours. Okay, I'm going to come in. Again, coming in and then back out to B, and now I'm rotating again till that line, which you can't see but I can barely see, is right there on top of my previous stitch petal. On the back, all the way to the center, back to B, rotate till that line's on the petal. No danger of hitting my seam allowance yet, but this next one, I gotta move that tape, that's hard to see, but this next one should be right on my line. So I'm just gonna stop right there. Bring that thread up. Okay. Now, here's where the interesting part comes in. I'll bury that thread in a little bit here. I'm still going to put more petals on. This time, instead of doing, like on this design, I ran this line onto the tip. On this particular one, I ran this line that you can't see onto the tip. I'm going to put this line, which I did here, into the tip, and I'm going to bring my thread up right on the petal. I'm going to stitch a petal in between the two petals. I'm going to stop at the next one. So we're going to pretend like, oh, I already pulled my bobbin thread up. How about that? There it is. Okay. We're going to pretend like we stitched that whole petal. Obviously we didn't. And then I'm going to come and do the same thing in between here. So I'm making petals in between. It looks like the other petals that I've already stitched are laying on top of these. Oops, I want to cut it. Okay. Now, do I have to bring this thread up at every intersection? No, I don't. I could travel around the initial petal. I find that's a little hard to do and get it to look nice. So I choose to bring up the threads and bury the threads each time. But hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. So I've made a petal there, I've made a petal there, and it looks like my original ones are laying over the top of them. And then I'm going to bury all of this thread. So I'm going to finish off the last two. Again, this line and this line, so the lines to either side of the tip are on my other two petals. I'm going to bring my thread up on my stitch line. Use my tweezers. And then I've got one more to do. And it looks real hairy right here because I have all of these threads that I have to bury, but once you bury those threads, you won't know the difference. One more to do. Okay, and that is all there is to that. So now my next step is going to be to give it a haircut. So I will come in here with my cinch side threading needle. I'm going to bury all these threads, which will in effect make them go away. You won't see them. And my design will look nice and clean. No backtracking. Oops. No backtracking, no messing around with them. No double stitch lines where I missed. Just a nice, clean design. You're going to do this particular one on all four sides in the center. And you're doing this one on all four corners. If you want to, on this block, you can go ahead and stitch the very outside drawn line. That's your seam line for when we start putting our blocks together. You don't have to do that one. That's just a reference line. But if it makes you feel better about it, you can go ahead and do that. I did there. I tied it in a knot. Okay, and then you can see the benefits of bringing up. It was a pain in the butt to bury all those threads, but you can see how it just made everything a little cleaner. And that is your design for that segment. Done. You're gonna do that on all 4 sides. You're gonna do this in all 4 corners, and if you want to stitch the very outside line that you drew, you can do that. You don't have to, but you can do that. That is it for this block for this month. We're just doing this block. There's quite a bit of stitching in this block, so this is the only one for this month. Next month we will start doing pairs again. When we get into month 4, we will start doing blocks in pairs again. Smaller blocks, not big ones like this. This is the biggest one you're gonna do. Okay, we'll see you next month. Enjoy stitching, drop your shoulders, relax, let the rulers do their work. It's fun if you let it be. See you next month.